Okay, 7 o'clock. Let's start the Monday work session for March 29th. Roll call, please.
Here.
Aye.
Casanello.
Happy to be here.
Vader. Here. Larson.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
Morse.
Here.
Okay, we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with the first agenda item, the sidewalk.
Good evening, Council. So this was a discussion that came up with the Architectural Review Board and some of the other council members when we most recently were discussing with the hotel their sidewalk that they're going to be installing. One of the things that we noticed is we're having severe maintenance problems for our sidewalks. Our brick sidewalks are starting to lose integrity. We've had some reports of issues that the bricks are loose, as well as causing major tripping hazards. So we started investigating alternatives over the course of the last year and a half. And then it finally kind of came up for an opportunity. So the site across the street will be replacing essentially an entire block of sidewalk. We spoke with, I know Marchant was involved in the discussion. We talked about, could this be a good test scenario for trying out one of these other alternatives? And so we're looking at a stamped concrete alternative to our brick. This would be something that would go down in sections. They would apply whatever pattern we chose. Ideally, we would pick the pattern that we currently have our brick sidewalks in, and then we would also designate a color. So going forward, new sidewalks would be installed in this fashion if this is something we all agree upon. We did take it to the ARB. The ARB was in support and recommended that we take it up to council for this change in material. This long-term will give us better maintenance and structural integrity for the sidewalks. So with the project across the street, they will be putting in a sidewalk down Jefferson, across Washington, and then take it down Fayette as well. We were hopeful that if this is the route we'd like to go, that the town could work with the contractor to get a bid and replace our portion in front of the museum at the same time. This is one of our biggest areas of issues and complaints that we get, especially during Haymarket Day. There's a bad dip in it and we get a lot of trips. So this is what we're looking at. If you guys have any questions, let me know. It is something we'd like to move forward with. If everybody's in agreement, it will be something that we will bring forward in our zoning text amendment draft as well to officially change the material, the pattern, and the color as appropriate in the design section of our ordinance.
Okay, we'll circle this around for comments, and then we'll pretty much get a consensus and make it a directive probably, right? Or is there a change for vote required for it? Directive, good?
We could do a directive for the kind of test scenario across the street if that's how council would like to move. And then I will work with our planning commission liaison to make sure that it gets into the ZTA if that is how council would like to proceed.
Okay, Bob, do you have any comments?
I want to confirm something. Chris, we need to, if we're going to do this across the street, we're going to need to do this, make a decision in a relatively short period of time, because I would assume that we're going to want to put the tie into their contract, and rather than us be the general contractor, have the hotel contractor cover our section.
Correct.
Do we have a sense of how much money that's going to cost us? Ballpark?
We have not gone down that path yet, but if we can get a consensus with council today, we can always reach out to the hotel tomorrow to get an idea based on linear feet, and we could probably ballpark that cost.
I would strongly suggest that we direct staff to do that, and if we need to, we've got Roberto 55,894 and capital improvement funds that we could do you think it's gonna be more than that?
We don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not based on what, just the general cost for stamped concrete. I think that would be significantly high for that section that we'd have to do.
I mean, why mobilize twice? Let's get it done all at one time.
Hey, Joe?
Yes. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we talked about this previously a number of months ago. We did a comparison, right, of stamped concrete and the regular brick and some other methods, and this seemed to be the most cost-effective method. I have the same question Bob has relative to the cost to the town, but I would think if they're mobilizing and we're going to piggyback on what they're doing, this is more like a change order for them, I would suspect, and there should be some savings associated with that. So I think if we can find out what that number is so we can properly budget for it. It doesn't seem to me to make a lot of sense if we didn't do the other section, if they're going to be doing all along, what is it, Carolina, Washington, up to our property line, and then just their portion of Fayette, I think it would make more sense to have it all done. So I'd be very interested in seeing what those numbers are on a linear foot basis, you know, a percentage basis of what it is for the entire work to be done. Sure, I think we should direct staff to inquire as to the possibility of piggybacking on their contract. Thank you.
Tracy Lynn?
I absolutely think that that's the route we should go.
I guess I'll include myself in this. I agree. I'm totally behind it. Marchant?
You know, certainly we've had to evolve our standards and revisit the practicality of some of our capital infrastructure. The ARB was supportive of it as sort of a test project, and it made sense that there be a consistent standard. They're going to already have stamped concrete as part of their patios, and have already looked at it along the, I just said Jefferson and Fayette. So I think it's a test project to see the end product, the continuity and the consistency around that block, and then we can base that on any future decisions that we need to make, and the budgeting makes sense, so I'm in support.
Same, no comment to add, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Stamped concrete comes in different shades and colors that, depending on where you're getting it from. So I think in addition to finding out from the hotel subcontractor who they would be using, I think we need to find someone that we would call on later on to get a pricing on it once we determine the square footage. Because I just had it done 2 weeks ago at a large project that we had, and it's different between subcontractors. So I think it's good, the suggestion to piggyback on the hotel subcontractors. Their subcontractors may be out of our price range because of the size of what we're looking at and how we may cut it up and do it in portions. So I think once we've determined our portion of what square footage for our section, maybe get a competitive pricing just to see if, because they may be high-end type subcontractors that they use, while ours may be mid-range. So I think it's just wise for us to always compare 2 or 3 quotes once we determine what our square footage is.
Absolutely. I'll get the specifications on the colors as well that they intend to use, because that'll probably be something that if they're intending to use a certain type of color, that we're going to want the consistency throughout town. So we'll try and make sure that those colors and things are specific as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, just can I add to your statement? So there was a deliberate discussion that the pattern do match the existing patterns of the sidewalks, so there will be consistency, that color and pattern. So.
Okay, I think we're in consensus here. Don't think there's really a need for a vote, just a directive to move forward with it. Under the conditions of, how are we going to approve the costing?
So we'll come back to the next council meeting with some more detailed information. We'll reach out with Ryan and just let him know that we seem to be moving forward with it, and we'll allow them to move forward with that, and then we'll just get the specifics on if we need to get additional contractor bids or if we're going to move forward with their contractor as well.
Are they waiting on any permissions from us to do it that way at this point, or are they already, yeah, to do stamped?
Yes, they're waiting on our permission. They actually were pretty close to ordering bricks because of the shortage right now and making sure they have the quantities they needed. So we were able to touch base and they are waiting. They did say though by, mid-April they need a final answer. Otherwise they're gonna have to proceed with brick just to make sure they have it.
But that's just a material cost.
Yes.
Stamped concrete is different. Stamped concrete is there and readily available.
Order, yeah.
But like materials now, steel is 7 months, 8 months out.
So-
And
So they've been made aware of the ARB decision that's,
Yes.
okay,
They were
Okay.
notified the next day that it was coming to council.
okay.
do we have a timeline, Miss Emily? Mr. Mayor, do you mind?
Go ahead.
Sidewalk
Yes.
going in. So they're working on the portions right here where the sidewalks close on the building. But they are looking around June for the sidewalk to be done.
Okay.
So this portion will come out on Washington and they'll work on putting it in.
So part of their contract includes in front on Washington Street?
Yes, so they do the portion on Washington Street that butts up right to our property and then it goes down Jefferson.
Okay.
So they have to get rid of their several curb cuts from the previous buildings that were there and driveways, so all of those will be gone. It'll be just a solid curb all the way down, and then you'll have your sidewalk.
Okay.
So,
So what we're trying to determine is our property right up to the main road?
yeah.
But we would tie into their,
In front of the museum and then
Right.
around
Yeah,
Fayette.
there's
yeah.
a very small portion that comes to around the museum. I had suggested, and this can be a discussion once we get pricing, our sidewalk actually ends right there in front of kind of our monument sign that's at the museum property, and maybe just, it's not even 4 feet hardly, bring it to the parking lot of the museum.
but that's a
So-
handicap, that's handicap too.
Yes.
That has to be a transition.
Yes, there is currently a handicap ramp there, and so we would bring it, if you bring it right up to the edge of the parking lot, it's a flat right onto the asphalt
That's a
there.
good idea.
So we'll look into that.
Okay. So we'll move on to the third quarter budget amendment.
Yes, so this is something we have spoken about a couple times. This was planned. We had really two different items here. You've got the Laney detail where you can see we're moving it from the 71,000 up to the 126,000. And then we had the pedestrian improvement grant, which we identified there's a little extra reimbursement funds that were there. And then we also finalized the last fiscal year's carryover surplus. So you can see that's the top part where the revenue, bringing in 55,000 for Laney, 23,145 for the increase in the pedestrian improvement grant reimbursements, the 27,880 for the carryover surplus. And then, of course, in the expenditure side with the Laney detail, you've got the wages as well as the FICA and Medicaid that go, or Medicare, I'm sorry, that go to the officers in their portion of those taxes. And then in relation to the pedestrian improvement, this was one, we kept you guys up to date on what was going on with that Columbia Gas, where they had to come in and move the line and, different change orders and everything happened. The project did cost a little bit more. It's $30,000, but as you can see, between the pedestrian improvement grant and the carryover surplus, we have more than enough to cover that $30,025 change order, and essentially it was about 3 months almost. I mean, we sat here for quite a while with those plates in the street. So that's really where that came from. And then the remaining overage, we just moved to the CIP fund expenses. So we would, we've already advertised this for a public hearing at the April meeting. So really, this is just a informational piece for you guys so you know what was going on. So we'll just, this will be the third quarter amendment to get all this corrected.
Okay, anybody have any comments?
Not tonight, current budget.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Move on to the fiscal year 2021 current budget report.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
Excuse me, congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be back. First of all, a few items I wanted to address on the sales tax receipt. I'd like to inform you all that we are starting to catch up with Prince William County sales tax. This actually covers up to December 31st. I have also just received in the past week sales tax for January, which you'll see in the next council meeting, a more updated version of the current budget, puts us in a positive spin on this line item. We are currently collecting the business license tax renewals. As of right now, we haven't come across any issues with concerning payment by any of the businesses. In fact, many of them seem to be paying them ahead of time. One item that I did want to touch base with was on the, and I apologize, I should have highlighted on the revenue use of money, the investments, the interest on the bank accounts. There you go. You're right there. These items basically is the interest we gain that drive off the interest rates. As you all may know, many of the interest rates are taking a hit right now, so this line items probably will not meet the expectations that we've had in prior years. So that's something we would address later on if we needed to on an amendment. The where's it? Apologize. Actually, those are the only two, the few items I actually wanted to address with y'all from the last time we spoke. I'm not sure if you guys any other question for me concerning the current budget. I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions? Chris, we'll start with you.
Thank you, sir. Robert, you indicated that we may not meet our investment projections. Where were we projected to be and where we are right now?
So, in the prior years, we were up over the 20,000s when it comes to close to 20,000 when it came to the investments in the prior years. This year, we were going to go off of those trends, but of course, with how the interest rates going on with the feds, that is actually impacting those interest rates. Yeah, so we will be short, especially on the VML investment. They tend to do a daily interest rate, so that fluctuates up and down.
I think what I'm asking is we have, 3 more months before the end of the year?
Yes.
So comparably with what we projected, just with numbers, what did we project at and where are we right now with 3 months to go?
Well, I would.
And if you need more time,
Yeah,
maybe if you could bring it to
the
council
meeting,
session
yes,
to
I can
share
do
it.
that
But
for you. Correct.
we all know that there are different aspects of the wider community that's being impacted, but how much is it really being impacted?
Yep.
I think it's the same way how last year we thought that the meals tax, we were going to get hit hard with meals tax, but the companies pushed through and it surprised all of us as far as them coming forward and meeting their projections. So something like this where we projected earnings from investments just to see what type of hit we took for the investments.
Of course. Okay, I'll have that for you.
And then maybe recommendations of, if this continues over the next 12 months, where should we look at for investments?
right. Roberto, our next stockbroker, right?
Yes, sir.
Financial analyst. Okay, anybody else with questions? Bob?
Roberto, can you remind me, when do we get our, a sense of when the bank stock is going to be reported?
So we will be receiving that around May. We have received projections, and it looks like we will be well within the 20,000, may say a little bit more. But that should be coming in early May.
When are we projected to run out of Laney detail money? Next week? 2
So
weeks?
it should be about next week. I'm going to redo the math, depending also how many officers are working the project. So I will redo the math, but it should be next week from the last time we had talked.
Joe?
Next week is-
But it finishes
Yes.
day after tomorrow. Okay.
All set? All set? Roberto, stop me if I go too far, if I make any mistakes. I just want to look at this at a little bit higher level view, if we could. So on the revenue side, or at least overall, this is what, 75% our budget is? Right now, we should be roughly at total 75%? No?
66.
How much?
66%.
66%. Okay, good, thank you. Thanks.
It's almost April, so it's 75.
Yeah, close to it. All right, but the date on this, I'm not sure as of when, the total. But I like the way you broke it all down again, and that's really very helpful. So if I'm looking at this right, the gross profits are running at around 68.4%, and on the expense side, it's what, 58.6%,
Correct.
generally speaking. So, you know, we're doing relatively well. We have some challenges on the revenue side, but management is, the management of the budget is going relatively well from my perspective. So this thing about the sales tax receipts, can you speak a little bit more about how we're doing with the county and the expectation that we're going to get caught up? Or is it just, you know, you've got to get back in the seat for a while and start making some phone calls?
Well, I can tell you before I had to take a couple of days off, I had reached out to Mr. Velasquez, who is my main contact for the sales tax division, and we had come to an agreement that I will start receiving a monthly breakdown of what they're depositing. Unlike the prior years, they were just some depositing the money, but were not really informing me what month it was for, what exactly it was for. So we have come to an agreement that I'll be getting that monthly as well. I believe that he has, the last time I spoke, I think I addressed this with y'all too, he was changing the point of, the person that was in charge of our accounts to someone probably that's going to be a lot better at it, which so far it seems to be the case. Because as of a week ago, we did receive January's, which is probably the earliest I've seen a deposit from them when it comes to sales tax. So I can touch base with you and come back with you on the council meeting with some more information on that.
Okay, great. That would be very helpful. That seems to be a lagging line item, but that's not our fault. I mean, that's just, we're waiting on others to make sure we get the money, so but it's important to understand. And so these amendments that we're going to be approving after the public hearing on Monday, they'll be reflected in this budget, but not until the following meeting, because you won't be able to do it on Monday. So you'll see the changes in that in the following work session, so to speak. So that would be the end of April, beginning of May, correct?
Correct. But I would update the budget, the current budget on the website, so you will see it by the end of that week. You'll see it online with the
okay.
updated numbers, amended numbers.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. All right, you know, and I'll just hold off on any others that I have, and I'll talk to you. But Bob and I, we were talking the other day about the consultant's engineer. Just to be clear, that's Katie, right? Under the PC?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, we always get that confused. All right. I guess I'll make other comments when we get to the proposed budget, so thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do you have some comments, Chris?
Yes, I did just want to bring up, talking about where we are revenue-wise, just so that everybody's clear, everybody in TV land watching everything. The reason why we said 66% is just because the months that we're in, and yes, beginning of April, it should be 75%, but you got to remember with us, bank tax, for example, we don't collect that till May, so there's 20,000 there that, you know, really can't even be counted. And then business license, same thing, they're not due until April. And then with meals tax, since we collect that in the rear, so you've got, for example, we've collected to February. So if you're crediting it, okay, we should have the money up until April, well, we actually don't get meals tax for April until May. So revenue always does lag behind a little bit because they need the business and everything to happen for them to report and bring it in. So you will see that revenue will lag behind a little bit, but the fact that we're right on track is really, really good. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we're not in fact behind. We're doing really good, especially tracking in the trends on meals tax, and I have all the faith in the world that Roberto will be able to get the sales tax corrected, and then we'll bring that, because like it shows here, it was it's up to date for December 31st, so that's pretty substantial. When you're looking at, we already have almost 60% of the budget amount collected, so we're actually doing really good. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I know at the moment, no, thank you.
Okay. We'll move on then. The fiscal year 2022 draft budget discussion.
Yes, so this is the draft budget that myself and Roberto have put together. This is one where I like staff being able to put together our budget, the needs that we feel that the town we have to have, and certain things that I think would be advantageous. For example, if you can see in the very first line item, the real estate, not only have we equalized, but we've actually dropped it a little bit past equalizing. So we dropped it to a 0.29. So if you guys were aware, 2 years ago, the real estate tax was 0.146 per $100 assessed value. We dropped it to a 0.136 last year. And Roberto and I felt that the town could sustain another drop to 1.29. And that's where you would get the 371,903. And then, of course, you do have certain individuals, whether that be disabled, senior, that qualify for tax exempt. So it wouldn't quite be 371. As you can see, you know, we collected 369,849 when the budget amount was 375. So it would be relatively close, but there are some offsets. So that's one thing that I did want to note. Another thing, if you go down under the local taxes, you can see the transient occupancy tax. This is something that I did speak with Ryan and Bill about. I told them no disrespect, but a lot can happen when you're building a big building like that. So what I did do, though, is we put in $1,000, which will come up in the expense side, so we can kind of show you where we bring it in and where it could be expended. But we just put $1,000, and when the hotel is getting ready to open, we can always amend that, whether it's a half year, third quarter, or something like that, because they are anticipating opening in the first quarter. And then you can see we have adjusted some of the meals tax and sales tax amounts. Nothing too crazy there. One thing that we did do as well, which will come up in the expense as well, we have increased fines and forfeitures, 10,000. This is something where the finance liaisons have discussed this. We're going to get with Prince William County Circuit Court and try and discuss a way that we can audit the fines and fees and how they're appropriated, and just making sure we have a way to verify their numbers, which we can talk more about that later. But that's one thing. And then there's another program that we have discussed with the police department that I think that they would enjoy, and I'll speak more to that when we get to the expenditure items. And then we were already discussing about the VACO, the interest. As you can see, Roberto was aware that the numbers are significantly low, so we've significantly dropped them. So we've reduced it $8,500 for each of those. And that's something where Councilman Morris, you know, we very well may reach out to other opportunities for investment, but this is just something as of right now, if we weren't to change anything, we'd at least have accounted for that drop in rates.
Before you go any further, Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate to just, if there are any comments on those three main topics that Mr. Kuhn had mentioned? I mean, if not, it's probably going to get lost in the...
That's fair. If you guys want to do it that way, we can do, because there's only a couple more that I have, but we can do revenue if you have any questions.
Yeah, let's hit revenue first. Anybody have questions?
I just wanted to ask about the, if I can, the .129, reducing the tax rate, .129, the pluses and minuses of it. I remember last year when we were going through it, I was kind of still learning about the rates, and I remember there was a particular council member that I went back and forth with, and he taught me a lot about I won't mention his name, but Connor and I had it out, where we were going back and forth, and he showed me, actually I think he leaned towards my, my convictions on it, but that was a good experience for me in learning just what was impacted through it. So would we have that type of discussion concerning it? Is this the area, is this the time to have those discussions?
So as of right now, I think this would be a good time for staff just to identify our first go at the budget, and then probably at the next meeting or next work session, because we may have to schedule specific budget meetings, which we've done in the past. And this way, once you guys have time to digest this and all the numbers and kind of make your own notes, that's probably the best time to have that type of discussion.
Good.
Just because I don't know where you guys are right now, and this is a rather large budget, so.
Okay. That's good, because I know, even with Prince William County and their tax increase, how it impacts us, and just looking at the bigger picture that you guys are going to be able to bring to the table to inform us, and then for us also doing our own research.
Absolutely, and that goes to also, if anybody has any questions specific to the budget, please shoot us a message, an email, ask us, because I'm sure with just how big it is, or different things that have changed, which I'm going to mention a couple more. If you have a question, somebody else may have that same question, so it would be helpful just to get everything answered.
So what I'm trying to avoid, Mr. Mayor, is my first 2 years on council, I knew nothing about the budget and how the numbers came about and stuff. So I knew that I was ignorant concerning it. So I'm trying to make sure that we don't get to that place, either with myself or other members of council, in not knowing and just going along with it. Hey, it's a decrease for the residents, so let's just go with it. But just for us to fully understand what the decision is and the impact of the larger community.
To that, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
You done?
Thank you, sir.
Set? I think that's a really good point, Chris, and what would be helpful is if we kind of step back a little bit and do a timeline. So if you can do that, do a timeline that lays out exactly what the plan is going forward to an approved budget and the opportunities. We'll have public hearings and all that other stuff. But I also think it would be helpful for everybody to understand what are some of the assumptions made in coming up with the projections, the rationale behind it. And that would help, for lack of a better word, elucidate what it is you've done with the proposed budget.
So yes, I am working on a document. So some of you may have seen this last year, where we presented a document that kind of had all the days and the work sessions and stuff like that. So that's something that I would like to send out, and council kind of think about how many work sessions they would like, if we're going to have special meetings, stuff like that. So that will be something that I send out, just to get an idea of what you guys think of how we're going to be able to move forward with it. So yeah, I'm with you. And then in this document, you'll see we're continuing to work on it. It's more focused towards residents, but I can also make it to where this is for council, where we've got meals tax trends, real estate tax rates, which, of course, we've got some different numbers to change. But it's kind of just a bite-sized piece for residents to be able to know, but I can absolutely get this. We compare real estate tax rates to other localities, things like that. So we'll go ahead and get this together and send this out to council as soon as possible.
Good. One more thing, Bob. And I think in general, it would also be a good idea to understand as much as or as little as we know right now about the ARP, what impact that'll have on our budget. And, you know, I guess we're still waiting for the guidance from the Treasury to kind of specify what those things we can invest in and what we can't invest in, so.
So as of right now, I don't know if you guys are following it, but there is challenges. It is in courts, so I don't think we should even take that into consideration right at this moment, because if it's in the courts for a year, that's a different budget.
Well, let's put it in the parking lot, how's that? And make sure we don't lose sight of it.
Yeah,
that's
no,
all.
absolutely. I agree with that. We'll keep an eye on it, but I think moving forward, we should probably move forward with the sound budget without taking that into consideration. And then if it does move forward, then that'll just be additional resources that we can use.
Yeah, one of the things I've been thinking about, and I'm sure Bob has too, we haven't really talked too much about it, but I'm sure we will, is some of the offsets that we can gain from the ARP, if at all. That would help us with our budget, and we might be able to do some other things as well. So that's my only comment generally, so thank you.
And just speaking similar to how we use the CARES Act, Roberto and I identified several items, the laptop server, things that killed two birds with one stone. We would absolutely do the same thing if the ARP makes it through. So that's exactly what we'd be looking at doing. Thank you.
Steve?
Mr. Mayor, just one question. I know this is a draft, Chris and Roberto, and a good one. I have a question. If I read this correctly, compared to what we have last year, the police department is being funded at $815,826. What's the draft there? Last year it was $879,375. Difference is $63,500.
So if you look at the Laney detail,
That's $64,485. The other red spaces you have only comes out to $10,869.
What's your question? I'm sorry.
My question is that the bottom line is it's $63,500 and some change less than next year's. And again, this is a draft. Okay, and I'm looking at your draft and I'm looking at the red here, which is the reduction. And with the exception of the Laney detail, which is a huge chunk, obviously, it's a total of $10,869.
So you also have to look at, for example, the VDOT, that $18,280. That's also going to be a reduction, or I'm sorry, where we pulled the part-time from 37 to 18.
And that's going to be in red? to show?
Yes, that's a reduction as well.
Okay,
Then
so
you
that's,
also have
it's
the
not, it's not noted now.
Well,
correct.
it's the parentheses is a reduction.
Oh, so it's not just the red, it's parentheses.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's just
You
more of
answered my
a.
question.
Yep, so you've got the 18,000 from the part-time that's getting reduced, but that's because the 18,000 that's getting reduced from part-time, there's actually 28,000 that's going to the full-time to maintain the 6 full-time officers, and that also increases a 3% COLA for all positions in the police department.
Got it. It adds up with those. I thought it was just in the red, so, okay, thank you.
So just to be clear, what you're saying, Chris, is you're still bringing 6 full-time officers on the budget, and you're
Correct.
still adding in cost of living increases.
For every police position.
Good.
And then we also have part-time enough for 1 shift a week minimum. So that means that starting July 1, that first week, they would be able to have a part-time officer work 1 shift. Now, if we're fully staffed and they don't need that, then that will just roll over and continue until, you know, the chief decides that they need it. And then also, you can see, since we're here, there is a overtime selective enforcement. This is something that I've talked to a couple council members about if they'd be interested. We've heard a lot about lack of service or wanting additional service and how we could do that without breaking the bank. This is something that I think that with selective enforcement, council could kind of decide what the main focus should be on this patrol, whether it's monthly, quarterly, however you guys wanted to do it, and then that way the officer would get paid overtime on his day off or before shift, after shift. They could come in and focus on that particular area. So let's say it was the red light runners at Jefferson and Washington Street. That would be the focus. Or crosswalks or speed on Jefferson or Washington. That would be their focus. And then this way, residents also get to see additional police officers, because not only would you have the 1 police officer that's patrolling, taking calls, but you would also have that second officer. And this is one where the enforcement would help offset the cost. So that's something that, I did want to point out because that is a change. But I felt based on comments that we've heard from the public as well as what I've heard from the dais, that's something that you guys would be interested in.
In addition to that, with the Laney detail coming to an end and the VDOT grant, this is an opportunity for the officers to earn some overtime because the Laney detail did add mostly to the officers some overtime perk.
Yeah, exactly. So what this would do, instead of Laney detail where they were sitting on site and really not enforcing laws because they were sitting on the construction site making sure that everything was okay there, this would be more the officers paid overtime to come and enforce specific laws that council decides.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
You done, Steve?
Yes, sir, I'm done. Thank you.
Go ahead, Bob, and then you okay?
No, let Marcia go.
So we're just sticking on revenues right
can
now.
wrap up,
We
yeah.
sort of jumped ahead a little bit. We're just doing our revenues right now?
Yes, I've got one more revenue item, but since we were there, I just wanted to kind of wrap
Why
it.
don't you finish the revenue item and then, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
And then, so the other thing that I've got on here is you can see under revenue for the Commonwealth. Hold on, So under revenue for the Commonwealth, we have the DMV Select. So DMV Select Commission there, we've got 60,500. This is, we're ballparking right around 5,000 a month. Probably going to take us a little bit to get up to that, but I think once we get that full head of steam, we'll be moving pretty good. As you guys saw, the window's already installed. We got a couple changes to make, but when you head out the front door, you can kind of see what the one window looks like. So we're getting ready to post that job posting, and it looks like the start date will be ready for July 1. We've got Barry, who came and spoke to you, or zoomed in and spoke to you guys. He'll be here this week to kind of drop off the contracts that Martin's already reviewed. So those are different things that we'll be ready, or we should be ready for that probably at the next meeting if everything is good. So we'll be able to have all the contracts signed and starting purchasing stuff for that start date of July 1, ready to go, first day.
So when you say the next meeting, do you mean the next work session?
It could be the next work session for discussion, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So finishing up on the revenues, first of all, you're saying, based on the trends that you've seen over the year, you're proposing the reduction. I guess we'll talk later about whether or not we want to do 3 budget proposals of sort of at the rate that you're proposed, an equalized tax rate, and I guess once we get through the budget discussion, what any other items that we identify, is that sort of your idea, as we advertise 3 rates or simply 1 rate, or what do you think the strategy would be?
No, you would just advertise the one rate,
The
the
highest
highest
rate?
rate,
The
because we
highest
can
rate?
always come down, but you can't go up. So,
I'm sorry,
and it's cheaper to
misunderstood.
advertise that way as well.
Obviously, the highest rate, but are we looking at trying to do 3 budgets based on 3 options, or no?
I would not recommend that.
Okay.
I think unless you guys specifically know, if it's a certain amount that you guys want to try and cut certain things, then it's going to have to be cut somewhere else, so in the expenses or somewhere else. So that's one where I think that's where the budget work sessions come into play, that we present this and you guys kind of go and talk amongst yourselves to say, okay, well, this is the rate that we want to, or these are the expenses that we absolutely have to have, and I think that'll kind of help make the decision.
It's been my experience that typically the board will direct, or the council will direct, hey, come up with these sort of 3 scenarios. I'm getting used to the Haymarket way, so I appreciate you being patient with me how we do that.
Absolutely.
So, so right now we're below what would be an equalized tax rate. So I have some questions about the fees, the application fees. That was one of our priority, the zoning permit fees. That was something on our list, a prior list to revisit, correct? So this is based on our current fee schedule?
Yes.
So, okay, well, I'll talk about it later, but I just want to point out for
the
council.
forms and, yes, because that was it was a comprehensive look at a lot of that, the fees, fee schedule, the checklists. There's a lot of that we have not yet gotten to since July. But
So that, I see that, and the idea, the assumption is not that they'll go up, it's just revisiting or recapturing the services that we provide correctly, so that may fluctuate. Inspection fees, what are those under
So we no longer have the building official.
so that's why they're zeroed out? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, motor vehicle licenses, that's the window tags?
Yes.
Okay. Occupancy permits, that's zeroing out as well, we don't do that as well. That was the building inspector?
occupancy, yes.
Yeah, so we zeroed
Yeah,
that
that's
out.
the county as well.
Other planning and permits, what does that generally entail?
Other county.
Is that site, that's not site plans, that's,
Yeah.
okay,
Those are site plans amendment
okay.
requests, for text amendment, any items that don't fall within the scope of the other line items
Okay,
kind of
so-
fall in there.
Okay, that's how you break it out. You have the permit, standard permit fees that we collect, and then those other services.
Yes,
And then
correct.
pass through as consulting fees. Okay, thank you. And the next question was going to be on the Landy detail, not Landy detail, the DMV select, and I saw you already caught that, so that's all my questions for now, Mr. Mayor. Bob?
All right, couple of observations, a couple of comments, and a couple of questions. With respect to the actual real property tax rate, I've already told everybody in here what my thought on it, and what my thought of what's happening to the town is, and that is that I ran some preliminary numbers for various houses in the town as well as the commercial properties, and the long and the short of it is the residents in the town are going to get hit with somewhere between 9.5 and 10%. 10, Joe's the outlier at 12. 10% increase in their county real property taxes. So you're looking at an effective tax increase FY22 over FY21 of somewhere around $500 on average, more if you're in a single-family home. The reason I make note of that is that at the same time the county's doing that, they're contemplating instituting a plastic bags tax, now instituting a cigarette tax that, since they don't have to have a referendum for it, and then next year instituting a meals tax, and they're essentially raising the taxes across the board on county residents on a variety of things, yet they're getting $91 million in ARP money. So despite this influx of $91 million, not passing on any of that in terms of, one could argue that it's a panacea to budget. It's supposed to be a panacea to budget woes in various jurisdictions, and Prince William County is just looking at it as extra money to spend even more. Marshall, you're familiar with Loudoun County, my understanding is they dropped their tax rate, and this was one of the reasons given was the influx of the ARP money from the feds. Personally, I'm the one that saw the court challenge to the ARP stuff. I don't think that's going to be a very lengthy challenge. It's very limited in scope with respect to, there's a constitutional question as to whether you can use federal funds to offset local taxes. I don't think that's going to be a particularly long challenge. I suspect the courts are going to act with great haste, especially since the legislature's already done it. So I would suggest that we do need to factor that in to the FY22 budget. We do need to we need to factor half of it in because it's going to come in two tranches. If they meet the legislative guidelines, we're supposed to have that first tranche of $750,000. The state's supposed to cut it to us by June 19th, which means we'll probably get it right around the beginning of July. So we might as well do what we did with the CARES Act money, set it aside on a separate line item. Don't have any expenditures tied to it in the budget, but we at least need to account for it in next year's budget. Now to the point. After saying all of that, we don't rely on the real property tax nearly as much as the county does, and this denotes a slight decrease in the taxes paid by the town residents. I don't mind advertising the rate because I'm not even sure we have to advertise, and I'll get to that in a minute. I don't mind advertising the current rate and then working down from there, but I would suggest that I really want to work down from there because I think given the way that the residents are being strapped by the county on real property tax, we can both afford to, given the federal dollars and some other cuts we've made, we can afford to cut them a break to at least offset some of the taxes they're going to pay the county. With respect to the public hearing, it's a good idea. We probably should do it. If we're not going to raise the rate, I don't think we're technically mandated to do it. However, just as a matter of good practice, I would suggest we do it anyway. Do all of those rates. We jump down to cigarette tax. My reading of the numbers looks like we are trending towards just under $140,000. And then you want to bump that to 149 next year. I would suggest we rein that back for a couple of reasons. If we come in at 140, as it seems to be trending, that's a decrease from the previous year, which was a decrease from the previous year, and I suspect that it would have been an even larger decrease had it not been for COVID. COVID, according to the industry, full disclosure, I do a lot of work with the tobacco industry. According to the industry, COVID has actually spiked demand for cigarettes and other types of tobacco. I guess the general theory is that since people are working from home or not working in their office buildings, they're not limited to their 2-minute smoke breaks 5 times a day. They just go out in the garage, the back deck, or in their kitchen. So cigarette consumption, at least my understanding, is up significantly. Is that going to change post-COVID? Probably. But our numbers are, but the revenue numbers are still dropping. You got to remember it's a regressive tax. I don't know what the county is set to. Did anybody notice what they were going to set the cigarette tax for in the county?
I believe it's less than ours.
It's less than ours?
It's less than ours, and since
Well, but
the county cigarette tax will be less than ours, but because we already have our cigarette tax set in a certain way,
Yeah.
We're not mandated to lower ours.
Yeah, I was just curious. I hadn't looked up what their rate was, to be honest with you. If it's lower, that's not really going to drive that many people here. In fact, it won't drive anybody here because our taxes are still higher. Will it stop us from bleeding off as much business to the county as we currently do? Probably. I would suggest leaving that at 140 and not bumping it up to 149.
So I do just want to make one comment with the cigarette tax as of right now. This is one of those things that I pointed out. We've collections through February 28th, so we should be at about 58%, and right now we're at 68.9. So we are trending closer to 160 for the end of the year if we keep pace. So that's why we.
I did the math based on this, but okay.
Well, this is where you got right now. This was the collections for the current budget. I've got it up on the screen now for you. So we have 92,949.
Collections are up to February, which means that's
58.
March, April, May, June, so that's 2/3. So you divide 92,949 by 2 times 3 is 139,425. Is my math wrong?
Yeah.
Probably.
Probably.
We are in fact trending closer, like I said, we're trending closer to between 150 and 160. So that's why we actually did a conservative increase. At least we felt it was conservative based on the trends. So that's why we presented those numbers. That's kind of the way Roberto and I go, especially with revenue. Be conservative on the revenue side, and then in expenses, we kind of, if we think it's going to be a
I'm
certain
still
amount.
getting 139.
You're on the finance committee?
Well, that's something we can look at.
Yeah,
I want to buy my calculator.
You mean like
This
this?
is a calculator.
Yeah. Yeah, use a calculator. Or talk to the treasurer.
But I'll just say,
We're 2/3 of the way through, right?
Right.
well, so as of right now, we're 2/3, but you still have 2 months unaccounted for,
Not a,
because that's up to February.
that's up to February, March, April, May, June.
It's going to be a long night.
So we've collected 8 months.
7 months. July, August, September.
This is what happens in our finance meetings.
But you just said through February.
Okay. I'll tell you, we were conservative.
I'm basing on it through February. If the collections are through February, then we're trending towards 139,425.
If you'd like to cut it, we can cut it.
Okay.
No, if it's a consensus of the council to cut it, we'll cut it. Not if Bob says so.
I'm just raising the number, and
Yeah.
we can talk about
It's
this.
not Bob saying so, it's if the council agrees to cut it, we cut it.
Correct,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
That is my proposed,
Okay.
When I say when-
put it that
Right.
way.
If council chooses.
Yeah,
it
if
can be
council
reduced.
chooses.
Yes, yes.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Fine revenue. I'd like to get the sense of the rest of the council on this. We have had an issue with the circuit court since time immemorial with respect to getting paid for the tickets our officers write. They have historically been unable to tell us how much they owe us, how much they've paid us, what the check they do cut us is for, how much is left, what percentage any one particular individual has paid us, and they have historically blamed it on their software. Well, my understanding is they got new software a couple of years ago, and they still can't report it to us. I grew weary of this, and I think we need to send somebody down to the clerk's office and possibly some buddies from more than just the town of Haymarket. I suspect the town of Dumfries and the town of Occoquan should go as well, because at this point in time, we have no idea what's owed us and whether we've even gotten the proper amount, or how much is outstanding, how much we're going to have to go after. And I think we need to settle this once and for all. If they have a manner by which they can determine what the amount of the check they have to write us every month is, then they can certainly provide us with the paperwork that tells us it's for these fines or this percentage of this fine. But we need to put a little heat on the circuit court clerk. And I'll be more than happy to do it, but I mean, this is ridiculous. After 20 years, we still have no idea where we stand. And it makes projecting the revenue almost impossible, even though I don't like projecting it. But
Bob, is that citations and accident report?
it's, you got it listed as fine revenue, right?
Yes.
Line 3140-01 on the first page.
Thank you.
And
Bob, just to that point, Bob, is there an audit mechanism by which we can go through?
no, they give us no documentation, so we have no way of determining. Okay, guy gets written up, guy goes into court, judge says $500 fine payable to the town, blah, blah, blah. We have no idea of all the people that go to court and all the people that are issued fines payable to the town. We have no idea who's paid them, who hasn't paid them, how much on a percentage basis they paid them if they're on a payment plan, who has skipped town and not paid at all, how much the circuit court has reimbursed us, how much they haven't. We know nothing because they refuse to give us any supporting documentation for the finances. They just, am I correct? They simply issue us a check and say,
Well, so they have.
Be happy?
Well, they have one form, and essentially it's got interest on fines, and recovered cost. And then they take their 5% commission out, and then it's the total transmittal, which is the amount that they send us in a check.
but no detail. And this has been going on for
No-
more than
no
20
And
years.
they're budgeted, I mean, they have an audit just like anybody else. I agree with, I don't see why that would be hard for them to provide that to us, because they would have to provide it for an audit, I would think, so.
Yeah, so that's something where I do agree with Councilman Weir that I think if council is okay with it, that's something that maybe reach out to the other towns, Occoquan, Quantico, Dumfries. I mean, amongst all of us, you could see there's a significant amount of money that the clerk's office does process in fines and fees for all four of the towns. So I'm sure that's something that,
See if they get a different report than what we do.
well, I can speak for two towns, and it's very similar, if not the
Okay.
exact same. So I'd have to reach out to Dumfries and Quantico, but
Yeah.
yes, I can do that as well.
Okay.
Anything else, Bob?
No, the rest of it's on expenditures.
Yeah, I have a couple more, but I don't want, in case you guys have more.
I'm good.
No. I don't want to drill down too deep, but one of the things that struck me was the attorney's contract. I know there's no change in this proposed budget, but does their contract go up effective like July 1st? A percentage change?
I believe it was within, I think last year is when we had our first increase when it
Right.
came to attorney. I'm not sure if this year we'll have another increase, but last year we were
So it's
informed.
got
of
an
the increase.
escalator clause on it.
I think they might, so you might want to just double check
Okay.
that. Just like the trash guys, which you guys put in there. And I just want to be clear on something else here. So in this budget, we're talking about a 3% increase across the board, right? For employees.
So it'd be everybody except myself, yes.
And why aren't you getting anything?
I'm contracted.
Okay. I think we have a weakness here in our system, and I think we need to correct it. I think we have to look at the town manager's salary. This is something I've noticed in some of the emails, that our town manager is essentially on a per-hour basis is making less than some of his subordinates.
What?
So, yes. So I think we need to take a look at that as well. And as we go forward, I'd like us to make sure that we look into that.
No, that can't be right.
Other than that, I have no other comments. Oh, one thing though. Great job on this, guys. Well done.
So Joe, just,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Before we even go further with the budget concerning that line item, as far as the increase is concerned, could we then
Probably put forward a discussion on an amount, whether it be a closed session or here, or just discuss it just to do a comprehensive research as to what each person is salaried and make a recommendation. But I agree with you. That is, I mean, from what we are demanding of him, and he's still here.
Yeah, I think we could do that, absolutely. Of course, we have a pending review to do, which we haven't performed yet. And we'll have to get around to doing that, because I'm sure he wants to get through that and see where we stand. But I think certainly we can ask the staff to get that information for us. Not to put you on the spot, Chris, but I think it's important that we look at that, because I think there's an issue of equity here.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I have a document similar to that for the planner, clerk, and treasurer. That's something that I presented last time when we discussed the town clerk's position. So that's something that I'd have to reach out to other localities to see if somebody else has already done something similar to that recently, just so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I could send that out. If you guys are okay with that, because I just don't think it would necessarily be appropriate for me to try and pick and choose which localities to, compare myself to.
As long as you don't go north and go to Loudoun.
But
Yeah, I mean, that's fine by me. Leesburg, I meant, sorry. But if it's okay with the rest of council, Mr. Mayor, I think we should pursue it. I'm just going to speak for myself. I think you deserve it. So, I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if it's a directive, but I think we should do it because it's going to hinder the process going forward.
Yeah, we should do a salary review of what the going rate is for
Everybody.
Everybody. I remember back in 2014, we did a CASA. Remember that, Joe? We did a CASA, and it was across the board, police officers, and that's how the PD got its increases. We did a CASA report with all the police departments and realized that they were underpaid. And we started at the police department to start moving them up incrementally, just moving up their salaries. And it took us a few years, but at least we got to a place where it was comfortable.
And here in the not so distant past, I have sent certain numbers to different localities that were trying to do something similar. and I don't think they ever sent me the final product, so I'll touch base with them and see if they finalize that report and see if we can get a copy of that.
Okay,
So we can go to expenses now if you guys are ready.
go for it.
Okay, so we've already talked about for the town admin, salaries and wages. So the COLA is in there for their 3 positions. And then as we've discussed before, with that DMV Select employee, I have put, or Roberto and I have put 1/3 of the DMV Select employee in there because we do anticipate them to help out with administration to include planning commission and ARB meetings. And then if you go down a little bit lower, you'll see the DMV Select, so the remaining 2/3 of the DMV Select employee, that 33,600. Then everything else is with those increases and different numbers that we have received from insurance, which will be trending similarly with the police department. Basically, we get different audits from those entities that tell us basically how much coverage is going to be for that given year, so that has been taken into account. And just like I mentioned, we have moved for the police department salaries and wages, the 28,000 to bring that back up to maintain 6 full-time officers, and for each position to get a 3% cost of living adjustment, and the selective enforcement. So we've already discussed that. And then I did want to note just what Councilman Shannon saw for the residents out there, that we have the DMV grant, the VDOT grant, Laney detail, a lot of things that were accounted for there that we have not received any funds or anything yet. So as of right now, we just didn't put it in the budget to expend because we don't have any of those grants. So there's no sense in having it in the budget as of right now. And then the same thing when we got those 599 funds, you guys remember, you provided the bonuses as well as the recruitment bonuses. That was, to my understanding, a one-time thing, so we also pulled that out. So you can see there's quite a couple items there where the budget reduced. And then you'll see one thing I do just want to point out is under workers' compensation insurance, there's a big jump there, almost $6,500. That has to do with the Laney detail because it's based on the number of hours that the different officers work. So yes, that is going up. However, with the Laney detail going away, we can probably anticipate that next year that will go down. So that's just something I wanted to note.
Chris, how much of that is attributable to Laney, of that 6,500 increase?
Quite a bit of it, because normally what they do is they take the staffing and then based on the numbers and schedule that the officers work, and that's how they calculate it. So the Laney detail, that extra work was not accounted for in this. So that's one of the main reasons why it is off, or it was off, and when they came back and corrected it, that's where the 6,500 comes from.
Before you jump off that, I want everybody to notice something. When you back out the amount for the DMV grant, the Laney detail, the associated $3,000, the bonus that's no longer there, and then some of the savings from not having to pay FICA and insurance on the Laney detail. In essence, even though it looks like even though there's a reduction in the bottom line of the budget on the ordinary expenditure line items, because you've got line items that are going away, you're actually bumping them up. They're actually increasing by about 30 grand, give or take, once you offset the details that are no longer being paid for because we don't have revenue to support them. But the base budget for the PD actually goes up when you back those out.
And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is we do have a new section that we added. This is something, since I've been here, I've said that we've needed. This is called the Economic Development section. So this is also where that TOT is coming in, the taxes that the hotel is going to pay. So what you can see is 3% is going to have to go towards tourism and traveling business marketing. That's what the agreement between the town and the hotel was prior to them breaking ground. So that money will go back to the Hilton Hotel as long as they do what they need to with the advertising. And then the other amount is the $570. As of right now, this is just kind of sitting there. We articulated it as general unrestricted because that will be the 4% that comes in from the hotel, but that's just more of a visual for you guys to see. When it's time for a budget amendment, that's one of those items that'll change, but I just wanted you guys to get a picture of the idea, how when they pay money to the town, how it's allocated. Then the other amount, this is something that I've worked with Vice Mayor. It is under advertising. However, the consultant that we use for CARES Act, Mr. Freeman, he does have, I don't even remember how many, it's like between 20 and 30 years of economic development experience. And he has a partner that they are going in and starting to do consulting for $1,000 a month. And that was something that he did a presentation with myself and Vice Mayor. And this is something that would be able to translate to help businesses and help with the Business Roundtable. He was very helpful with getting us in the Inside Nova paper. He was very helpful with us getting on Prince William County Tourism and getting in contact with those people to try and continue that relationship. So that's something that we'd be interested in moving forward with. And, of course, with ARP, that, I believe, would be an option to continue helping the businesses. And then there would still be about $10,000 there for general advertising to include, we could do something similar to the video that we did with some different businesses and maybe advertise it a little bit different than we did the first time. Just learn from the mistakes. You know, I know it was something that a lot of businesses liked, but if it, you know, we can include more businesses or advertise a little bit differently or longer, that's something that I think would be advantageous as well. So that's a line item that we, you know, wanted to put in there and make sure that the businesses that are paying, you know, the meals tax and business license, and as we've already said, they do pay quite a bit of the revenue. That's something that we really need to start giving back to those businesses and give them a reason why they decide to open their business here in the town of Haymarket. And then the only other item that I had is, as you go down to the bonds, you can see the bond amounts have reduced, but essentially that's what happens is you continue to pay your bonds off. But that was the only reason why we've got that reduction there. Still got a couple years. 2023 will be the end of two of the bonds. And they'll all be done by 2025, but we're getting there. We're slowly chipping away. So that is the expense side. And then basically we just got a couple things accounted for. As you can see, CARES Act is another one. We do have the 66,879, but as I've talked to some of you guys, I anticipate doing another voucher program. I've got the county and actually today we had to send some documentation over to Prince William County and their auditing team because they're going through and just checking on the towns to make sure that we're doing what we need to. So once I get through this process, then we'll be moving forward full steam with that second voucher push.
On that note, they're responsible for auditing the town and nobody else, correct?
To my knowledge, yes, but I'll get a little bit more detail as to what they're working on because we meet with them not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow.
Okay, because my understanding was since they proctored it to us on behalf of the state, they have to do, in this particular instance, they do the audit, not the state or the feds, and then they report the results upstream. And
that is my understanding, but as you guys remember, we got those funds that first meeting in October, and we were more worried about trying to help the businesses and residents.
Trying to spend it before December 31st, which
So,
of course ended up not having to do.
Yes, but that, to my understanding, you're correct. That's how I understand it as well. The county will be the ones doing the auditing and the final auditing and everything. So
And that's McGladrey?
I think that's the firm that they're using.
Great.
Which raises a question, is the ARP going to have the same kind of flow-through, different, direct?
My understanding of the way the ARP goes is if you are a jurisdiction like the county, as large as a county, the money is allocated to you directly from the federal government.
Okay.
And then there is a certain audit requirement that the county has to fulfill and provide the documentation to the feds. With towns and perhaps cities, I think it's just towns, the money is allocated to the state. The state then sends the funds, proctors that money and sends the funds to the town. And I don't even think they're allowed to take a cut out of it, a processing fee. They send it to the towns, and you are given, as I understand it, a set of guidelines on how to use it. However, unlike the CARES Act funds, you're not required, and I can't believe this, you're not required to essentially provide an audit or a paper trail. It's on, Scout's honor, we spent it the way we were supposed to spend it.
Well,
I don't suggest that we go down that path.
we won't.
But, I mean, my understanding is that's how it was written. There's a less stringent accounting and auditing practice required of the towns. I'm certainly not going to be in favor of anything less stringent than we've already done, just to cover ourselves. But that's the mechanism, to my understanding, at present.
Yeah, we'll just operate the same way that we've done with the CARES Act. It's got its own line item. It's got its own section, so this way we can track it. For example, today, really all we needed to do to send them was essentially pull, okay, what expense have we pulled from CARES Act? And we've done the work leading up to it to make sure all the documentation and reasoning was there. And we were able to move forward. It was pretty quick, so I don't think that we should have any issue. So I think it'll be treated the same way.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any other questions about expenses?
We're going to take it by section. How do you want to organize these questions?
I mean, we've already done revenue, so I figure we can just hit expenses now, whatever you guys.
Marshawn, you mind if I take it I've got a real quick thing on expenses. I've got a bunch of little issues that I'd like to see changed and questions on it. But rather than go through that exercise tonight, I think that's probably something I'm going to hold off, because it's 1,000 here, 500 there, increase this $2,000, and kind of move the numbers around. I think that's an exercise that's best held during a budget work session where we're actually sitting down, and once we've got the rate set and everything else and we're fine tuning it. So I'm not going to go into that detail tonight. I mean, I've already said my bit on the expenses side. So if you want to do some fine tuning, 1,000 here, 2,000 there, I think that's probably the better venue to do it. I'm speaking to everybody.
Because what we can do is we can do something similar to this with the PowerPoint and just pull up the actual working document and make changes right on the fly, kind of as we're going through that budget work session. So if you have comments like that, I do agree. I think that's probably the place to do it.
So do you want to take it by topic, or just each have their turn and go from there?
Just have each have their turn.
Okay, so real quick on the town administration, computer, internet, technology, you feel like that captures all the needs and council priorities in terms of upgrading systems, all the other stuff?
So we already addressed that with the CARES Act, with the laptops and the
Okay,
server.
just checking
and everything.
in to make sure you
Yep.
feel like you guys, that there's no other CIP pending project that you'd need to, something to think about, or maybe the council to think about, but I assume it would come under one of these line items. So your printers are going okay, we got copiers are going okay? Okay. We got everything we need in here? No upgrades? Okay. I'm asking the same question 5 different ways. Okay, police department, during the take-home policy discussion, one was punt to the budget discussion on analyzing the take-home policy. Is that part of this discussion? Are we capturing that somewhere? Can we have some sort of council directive to?
So that's something that we have discussed,
Okay.
just with the whole scenario. I think we can try and look at like the hybrid plan, but this is also something that Roberto and I discussed. As you can look right now, we're at $8,699.
Which line item is that, please?
So that line item,
311-0042,
Yeah,
page
fine.
5 of 8.
And they held the same in the proposed budget.
So exactly. So we held the same in the proposed budget just because, I mean, gas fluctuates. It's going up, so we don't know, really where to go. But the 16,000 is one that we've been right around that mark for a couple years now, and that's included fluctuations and stuff like that. So that's why we decided just to leave it right there at 16,000. And then, as the discussion came about the take-home hybrid plan, something like that, this gives you guys the opportunity to have that discussion, I think.
Okay, so we're budgeting high for the status quo, and then we can validate or, I guess, decide on that.
So, yeah, I think with the 16,000, you could probably have the hybrid plan. If you wanted to do a full take-home, we would probably have to change it if the gas trends continue with the increases, but.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you for that. Town Public Works, under Public Works, 04, Town Public Works, that has gone away. Where was that moved to? These were the previous 45, 70, 17, zeroed out.
Wait, say that one more time. I'm
This
sorry.
is 411-0001, Town Public Works. Where did we reabsorb, where did we transfer that to?
Maintenance.
Maintenance.
Okay.
43-10001.
Okay, and that's because we got rid of our Public Works, I guess, section contract. Okay, and we're subbing that out, thank you. ENS inspections, we're adding that in because that's something we have now. Okay, street beautification, what is HF? Sorry, 411-0002?
That has, that has to do with the funds that were, prior council accepted from,
Historic Foundation.
Oh, HF is Historic Foundation. Okay.
Yeah, so that's that one-time money.
First of all, guys, I apologize, I don't have a chance to run down, so I don't mean to put you
Hey,
on
don't
the spot.
apologize, just talk, man.
Okay.
Just talk. You're on a good, you're giving it some.
17,000, repairs, maintenance under these grounds, we're dropping 17. Did we not have some pending repairs that we needed to see?
So this is something that I have discussed with a couple of y'all. So with the building inspections that I've been able to do and get those full reports, we have a little bit better strategic plan on items that we need to address, some of which also were, we have now replaced the majority of the HVAC units in these buildings. There's only a couple left that we may have to replace here in the next couple of years, but we have replaced quite a bit of those. And now that we just have a strategic plan on like reoccurring maintenance, changing out filters and doing stuff like that, hopefully we don't run into those catastrophic big purchases, catastrophic failure on something in a major purchase. So that's why I think we're moving forward and we're getting a decent amount of stuff done, but since we now have a strategic plan, I think it'll be able to drop the price a little bit.
Okay. Out back, the house out back still doesn't have a door and still doesn't have windows. Is that something we could recommend under this line item or recommend another line item?
So as of right now, that building is also not being used for anything. So I want to make sure that we take care of like the HVAC units in some of the buildings that have tenants in it, regrade the gravel lot behind there. So I mean, I agree that's something that we'll absolutely look at, but I want to make sure that we take care of the tenants and, street sweeping, and same thing with the parking lot. I want to look at trying to repair that. So there's a couple big ticket stuff here in spring that I'd like to really investigate. But absolutely, come the tail end of the fiscal year, if that's still there, hopefully we can.
Which
address
building is that, Marshawn?
What's that?
Which building is that?
The outbuilding.
The one out building, it's had those wood covers over the building, on the doors for
Wow.
years. It needs to get something more stable. So that's another question real quick. CIP, where would you and Bob, would you guys have the CIP coming up in the planning commission?
You would have to ask the planning commission chair. I have no idea.
Okay. And you anticipate
I
that
will
will
push
marry up
the
with this
issue
at some
though,
point?
however, yes.
So, yes, so
Okay.
there will be a CIP. We did one last year, so
Okay.
we'll bring that with some changes probably, but yes.
So the Architecture Review Board is likely going to take up and have a similar budget request as well. And we'll make that known in time for the council to take a look at that. It has to do more with wayfinding, and there'll probably be some suggestions on some of the town buildings. Thank you for that. And that's where I had Parks and Rec. Do we have, right now we have 20,000 for the park. That is simply for maintenance and grounds repairs. Do we have any other items? You already have your maintenance, I guess, under a different tab, but do we have any others? I guess that's where that'll come out of the CIP, I guess, if we have any other improvements. adding park equipment, adding
Well,
parking, any of that other stuff?
Yes, so
Okay.
you could pull from either. So what this one will be for, as you guys remember, we've got the supports getting ready to come in. It's going through the permitting process.
Okay.
So that's where this will get pulled out of. We will also have the company come out and review all of the equipment for the playground, try and tighten everything up, refresh oil, anything that needs to be done. That'll go there, and then we also may need some mulch. But landscape actually covers the cutting the grass and everything, so
Okay.
this is more the maintenance. So it says grounds maintenance and repairs, but really you could just change that to park maintenance and repair.
Okay. Just as a sidebar, one of the monies, federal monies we're getting into, I'd like to have the council discuss whether or not to put that into finishing out the sidewalk and putting that as a line item.
Way ahead of you.
So, okay, thank you, I'm almost done. Town Center Master Plan, we talked about that. Haymarket Day, I know that's a separate discussion. I meant to suggest to the mayor we add that later on, but I assume we'll if we do decide to move forward, we'll put that line item as appropriate.
So we are anticipating moving forward with that. Probably not as large as of right now. However, we can always amend the budget. So I mean, that's something that it's in there for at least a placeholder
Okay.
for events, and I think that we will be able to move forward, and we will amend it as accordingly.
Budget accordingly, okay. And the last one is blight mitigation. We have the 40,000 for a building official and engineer. Does that actually go, and if we have to step in and do building security, is that under that line item, or would that be under blight mitigation other? This is on 94-107.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it's a little more complicated, so I'll let Emily.
I would say it kind of falls under a whole discussion of legality issues, so when we have to get our attorney involved in making sure that we put out the proper notice, the letter, they're notified of their 30-day turnaround, et cetera, we start getting into liens if we have to do the work, so that's where that larger budget would come in to
40,000,
play,
okay.
along with the work that would actually have to be done.
Rolled up into that, okay.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Just just a couple items, and thank you, Marchand, for raising the CIP issue, because I'm concerned about that, Bob, and
I'll put the heat on it.
okay, because that really informs, some of the expenditures if, in fact, there's something that's more imminent, right? One of the things I really would like to explore, perhaps, and as we put together that CIP, is to do something for the kids at the playground, particularly some kind of a sunscreen for the kids, because I think we all have noticed that is really busy. It gets a lot of use. It's a great resource, and I think it would be helpful for the kids to have that kind of an environment where it's not as baking hot as it can get. So that's just something I think we should look into. The other thing, just a very minor thing, but I think it's really important we consider BZA and other training that might be something that we might want to look into. Particularly, I think the BZA could use a little bit of training. And, I know there's money in the PC budget. Not sure what kind of training for ARB would be necessary. Is there anything that would be available for architectural review boards? Right. Yeah, I went through some BZA training through VCU, and it was a really good program. It was a certification program. It's a little expensive, but since I'm on the BZA with the county paid for it. I'm not sure that's something that we could afford, but, we should look into that for them as well as the PC. But I'm a proponent of getting a lot of those folks trained. And it's not their fault. I mean, there are a lot of new people that may not really understand the state statutes and the land use planning behind the decision-making. So I think it would be very helpful if we look into that in this budget. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, sir. Couple of things.
I think I'll continue to preach this every year. I would love to, it is my opinion, to continue reducing the attorney fees, the attorney. I mean, I'll keep on saying it year after year. I just feel like if you keep it high, you're going to strive for it. No, we have better policies in place, better procedures in place, a system that works as far as contacting the attorney. So if it's the wish of the rest of the council to reduce it from 70,000. There is a change with FOIA. I thought there was something that came out with FOIA where we have to not necessarily pay for it, but we have to cover some of the expense up to a certain amount.
That's gone to the FOIA Council for review. The bill was carried over. So they will act on it in all likelihood based on the FOIA Council's review next session, so next year.
So once we get the numbers, if we have to,
We
because
won't-
it's gonna.
It won't go into effect, if they adopt anything, it won't go into effect until a year from July 1st.
Okay.
So it doesn't impact.
So we won't
us.
incur any expense or?
Not this fiscal year.
Not this fiscal year.
Okay. The building official, Miss Emily. Now that we have been operating with the county as our building official for the last 2.5 years, probably 3 years, do you sense this is something that we need to revisit as far as bringing it back in-house, scratch it off, let it run the way it's running? I mean, I was one of the supporters of getting it out of the town and into the hands of the county. But
So we have been with the county now since January 15th of 2018. Prior to that, I would say that recordation here was very difficult. The third party that we had at the time was difficult to work with when it came to reviewing plans and then being able to justify the cost to our residents. Many a times we had permits come in that should have been a very simple, let's call it an electrical permit, and we were being told it was $800 for the resident to pay. That's why we initially looked at making the switch. Since we've made the switch, I have occasionally had a complaint from our business community that things have not been able to go through as quickly as they would like. I do understand that. On the other hand, as a professional, I also understand that the county is requiring them to do the right plans to make sure mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is all up to code that is required by our state building code. So I do see both sides. I'd love for us to be able to offer a small town building department and an inspector that'll meet you on a Friday at noon or whenever you want. But at the same time, the level of service we're getting with the county so far has been top-notch for us. Many a times I have a direct point of contact with somebody, so Sean and I work very closely together. He is the person I call for all things permitting. I now have somebody in neighborhood services, as well as somebody who, is right there at the addressing desk. So I'm on a first-name basis with a point of contact in each department. And then at the end of the day, any issues I have somebody at a department head level who I can call up. So I would say, based on the level of service we've had for the last 3 years, it is going well, and we should keep going with the county.
Thank you very
Also, recordation has been on point. They're able to get everything they need.
Thank you very much. I still support the decision that we made a few years back. And I think for the residents, they don't really know the impact of how good it is with the county when they get to sell in their places. That's when the impact comes in, when they realize they have a permit or something that's outstanding that's against their property. And the last thing, Mr. Mayor, is concerning the general unrestricted, advertising 60003 under the economic development. This 22,000 is just a holding place, correct? There's no contracts being discussed, there's nothing at all.
No.
$1,000 a month seems steep, but this is just a holding place, just when it comes around, we'll
I mean,
approach it.
we can give a full breakdown of the price, because really, it's not, I mean, you can talk with Vice Mayor about kind of the presentation and the amount that they're willing to do and work with us and the different types of assistance they could provide for that. And it's, when you understand the full boat of everything that they're offering, it's actually a very good deal. I mean, I think it's a very good deal. And this is something that we could look at and investigate, but even, like, if we were to hire like a part-time person, you're looking at 4 times that. I mean, it's a major money-driven section, so this is a way we can kind of get a little bite-sized piece and some help moving forward to continue to move the businesses forward. But, I mean, we can continue to investigate if you'd like.
Just hold in place. Okay, just wanted to make sure it wasn't like, well, you know, we made a decision on it already. Because I thought when we discussed it with the hotel, there was a portion that goes back to the hotel that they would then invest it in advertising.
And that's the 430 right above that.
Okay,
That's already accounted for.
okay, cool. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, yeah, most of my comments were taken care of. The economic development line item, I appreciate that. I think the businesses should be getting some type of return on the meals tax that they've been paying. The CIP needed, I do agree. I noticed here that you put down a line item here for CIP for 95. Is that for something that's already been targeted, or is that just a holder?
That's a holder right now, but
So in the last 2 years, we have put forth a CIP with the Planning Commission, and when we do it, we start with the current year we're at, and then we project outwards. So I believe that number is reflective of what we had projected for the upcoming fiscal year. To include Gateway Sign Program, I have some numbers on that to share with the ARB, things of that nature.
Yeah, it should be on a
sidewalk.
staggered 5-year, where you've got X percentage of or X number of dollars to be spent in year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4, and year 5, because you're supposed to do that CIP in a 5-year, with a 5-year look ahead and extract and project what the cost is going to be in each of the successive years.
Right, well, the CIP right now is kind of dark to me, so I just wanted to know about that 95, what that was targeting.
we'll go ahead and tomorrow morning, we'll send out last year's CIP plan, just so you guys can get an
And this
idea.
will change as we amend and adopt this
Yep.
year's CIP.
And that'll be good. And also, I'm definitely in support of the BZA ARB PC training. Hopefully, the fine details could be shaked out to determine if we are allocating enough. And like I said, also, I would like to try and get some type of requirement for the BZA to meet a certain amount of time a year, just so that they can go through, if they don't have anything, scenario exercises, so that they don't forget what they've learned.
No, absolutely, because I do believe they should be meeting at least once annually, so I think at least twice a year, if not once a quarter, we can try and get that, because we do account for it in the salaries and wages, so to have additional meetings to kind of help with staff training, that would probably be helpful.
Yep, and that's pretty much all for me. Anybody else? Okay, so I guess we'll move on.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before you move on, sir, Madam Vice Mayor, is there anything you wanted to add concerning the Haymarket Day?
Actually, we are looking to reserve and plan for October 16th. So we're in the beginning of planning, just kind of, it's going to be a smaller event and that type of thing. Are you talking about actual funds that I might want?
No, I mean, just in general. Just wanted the word to get out there. You're not getting any money, but go ahead.
We're talking money. We're talking money. No, we're very optimistic that with all of the guidelines that we're going to actually be able to have the event.
Okay.
Yep.
October 16th. Thank you, ma'am.
When I mentioned to Chris and Emily during the rest of the week, we're anticipating putting some sort of report together for next week's packet or later on, or just sort of outlining the program for Haymarket Day and any initial?
I certainly can. I'll speak to it in my planner report, just a really brief kind of what we're thinking so that kind of the community knows. We'll also start putting messages out on social media.
Okay.
But so that you guys know, this is, the same time every year that we start planning, so we are not behind. We're right on track. Applications would go out in a month, And then we would spend usually May 1 right up until the day of, you guys know, midnight the night before, planning the final details. So it will be, everything will be in accordance with the restrictions, but we will promise to plan a fun day of family fun and activities, and it'll be a blast, like it always is.
Thank you. I was getting questions from the community, that's why I brought it, so thank you for doing
No,
that.
absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, just one more thing, sir. Can you permit me? The meal stacks, there's a proposal from the staff for 800,000, alongside the other great restaurants that's in town. Perando's just opened up tonight. Oh,
Yes, sir. We did take that into consideration. That's one of the factors for the increase.
oh, my wife took me there for dinner. I'm telling you.
He did.
Oh, yeah, she took me there today, and it was good. Okay, sir, thank you.
Okay, so we'll move forward, the priority list update discussion.
Yes. So this is something that I've sent to council. This is something we had discussed a little while ago. But once you start going down the IT quotes, security quotes, the CARES Act funds, policies and procedures, which is ongoing, the website update, which we did spend a lot of time updating that. There's a couple different things where we've discussed it, but we haven't finished. But what I would like to do is take some of these sections in green, because when you guys first came in is when this was developed. So it was a lot of questions basically to get y'all up to speed, but I think y'all are there moving forward. And then there's other things that we were able to start. We've already got the contract for landscape. We're already moving forward with the Planning Commission with the comprehensive plan. The Business Roundtable is moving forward. We've got the farmers market getting ready to start up next weekend, April 11th. We've been able to transfer all the funds back into town with Sona Bank closing. That was the bank, and we moved it to the Fauquier Bank. Oh, that's right. The museum plan and display opening, we have already accomplished that so that Haymarket Coffee operates and the museum is open. Mayor's been able to meet the HOA, the social media updates, the Prince William County railroad track resolution. I don't think we're going to be able to move forward with the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. We can try, but we have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of specific requirements that, unfortunately, we haven't done it in so many years that we would really have to start from scratch, so we don't have that starting point that would be helpful. But we can also always try. And then we haven't done the transition plan. So basically, I just wanted you guys to think about it, and maybe even if you've already discussed it amongst yourselves or thought internally what would be advantageous, what are the next couple things that you guys would like us to finish or really work on, that this would be a good opportunity.
Do you want this verbally or by email or what?
If you guys could email me any of the, because I understand, just talking about it right now, you might not be able to think about it, but, at least if you're like me, 2 o'clock in the morning is when you have your best idea. So if you just want to shoot me an email or call me the next morning or something and just say, hey, can we put this on for discussion? And this way council can all discuss it and kind of rank it just like we did the last time. But I just think, with staff, we're able to accomplish quite a lot in the past couple months, and I just want to make sure that we don't stop. I mean, I want us to continue moving forward and getting what you guys feel is necessary. Maybe reach out and talk to some of the residents. And
If you're worried that we're not going to keep you busy, I don't think you have to worry about that.
No, I'm not worried about that, but I do think this is a good opportunity. Just like I said, we've either completely finished or we're very close to finishing quite a lot of these different items. So that's why I just think it'd be a good idea to reach out to the community, talk to your neighbors, see if there's anything that they would like.
Chris, I have one thing, and it's something that we've talked about. Transition plan, we have nothing. Is that correct? We have
Correct.
nothing.
Yeah, there's no plan.
Can, Mr. Mayor, what I'd like to see is maybe, I know Chris is familiar, obviously, with a couple of the other towns, look out to see what they have so we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely.
To find something to, that we can build on.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
When you talk about a transition plan, you're talking about from one council to the next?
Correct.
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 Right, yeah, we did get nothing, you're right.
We have nothing in writing now,
Yeah,
and we know the situation, so
yeah, we had talked about that earlier, and
Exactly.
our intention was to make sure we do the right thing for the next
Exactly.
council.
And I think that's why it's right there at Tier 5, because it's something that we intend to address, by the time. Know that we've been extended 6 months, right?
6 months, you got another
A
6.
year and a half.
I didn't vote for that, but, Mr. Mayor, if I can just add that this is amazing that 71% of new members came on council. And, one of the first things that we did was we just sit down, and we knew you were overwhelmed, but we put together a tier list of tasks, and you came to us, and we put it in priority. And you guys have done a great job, you and your team, as far as knocking out the things that's on the list. So good job to you guys. And now we're looking to take some things off the list and add some more things to the list. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was good. And I think this is a good start for a transition. This is something that we can always look back on as you think of the transition plan for the next council. So.
Anybody else have comments? Okay, that pretty much takes care of our agenda items. Moves on to closed session.
Presuming you need a motion.
Yes, I do.
I move that the council convene in closed session to discuss the following. As permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, a personnel matter involving assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the town, specifically dealing with the town sergeant. And as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.23711A7, briefing by staff members pertaining to probable litigation involving federal and state grants, where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the town.
Second.
Got a motion and a second?
You don't need a roll call.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay, first thing I need is our attestation.
Excuse me. I move the council certify that in closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter or matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed in a closed session under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as cited in the motion.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Weir.
Aye.
Casanello.
Aye.
Pater. Yes. Thurston.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would move the town council appoint Officer Davis as town sergeant.
Second.
Okay, who wants to claim second on that?
A minute, sir. I'm being claiming right now.
Okay. So claim second for Councilman Morris.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Weir.
Aye.
Casanello.
Aye.
Pater.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Shannon.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it.
Bob?
What do I got a motion
Move to
for,
adjourn.
guys? Okay.
Second.
Okay. You can-
Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Let's close it up.
Shortest meeting ever.